And recording. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show, Raise Your Vibration with Raelin. I am honored today to be sharing space with Mr. Lloyd Chambers, someone that I have connected with recently and has quickly become a dear friend of mine. Lloyd Chambers is an author, a speaker, and he educates people about abundance and generating more of it in their lives. And I'm super excited to bring him into our space on Raise Your Vibration with Raelin. And he is also the author of a book, Visualization to Realization, with a foreword by Bob Proctor, the Bob Proctor. And he hasn't written forewords in any books or anything like that for over 15 years. So I'm very thrilled to have you, Lloyd. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much. And you know what? It's been my absolute pleasure to connect with you and share space. I think it's very, very important that when you connect with somebody, whether it be on social media or in person, that your main focus is understanding who they are as a person and connecting to their intention and giving them your attention. Aside from anything else. Okay, so it's been really a joy to become your friend, fast friends, as they say.
Yes.
Right? And I'm really excited for what the healing space can go to from here. And I'm really excited about what we're going to do together going forward, which I will talk a little bit about in a moment. What I wanted everybody to do, first of all, hello. My name is Lloyd. Nice to meet you. And you guys are welcome to come in and connect with me anytime. There will be links either below or above or left or right or whichever
right.
that you can click on to connect with some of the various different things we're going to be talking about today. But really, I just want you to come back into your body for a moment. So I want everybody to close their eyes. And take a deep breath in through the nose. And I want you to bring your attention down to your heart center. So what you're going to notice is that your heart is probably right now beating quite quickly. But I want you to tell it to slow down. Slow down. Now, each of us somewhere in the world, whether it's a person, a pet, or a memory of a person, have that ability to connect with pure, unadulterated love, that wonderful feeling that you can feel in your chest. And I want you to let that emanate out from your chest to right around your body. And I want you just to sit in that feeling. And take another breath. Now, it's very important to understand that throughout the course of any day, we're going to come across people, situations, circumstances, you might call it, where we feel conflict, we have issues and grievances with other people. What I want you to repeat after me is every decision I make is a choice between a grievance and a miracle. I relinquish all regrets, grievances, and resentments and choose the miracle. And just sit in that. Any negative feeling you have about somebody else, they will pick up on no matter where they are in the world, and they will start to talk badly about you, and they will vocalize that, thus reinforcing the circle of pain, suffering, etc. So we oftentimes connect with the pain that we are experiencing, and people love to talk about their problems, even those of us who claim to be a bit more aware. And I want you to release that. And now you can open your eyes again. And welcome back.
That was wonderful. Thank you.
No worries. No worries. My pleasure. So I suppose just one thing that I thought would be a good place to start.
Yes.
Is that we can often give ourselves a very hard time. Okay. We can often think that we should be better. We should be faster. We should be smarter. We should be all of those things. What we need to understand is that those things are not our fault, but they are most certainly our problem.
I love that.
Now, what's beautiful about that is that because it's ours, we have a choice and an ability to change, not the circumstance itself necessarily, although that's a slightly different conversation, but rather how we respond to that circumstance and thus set ourselves free. So what we just did in that exercise, we released energy we were holding towards other people. But maybe the person that you have regrets about is you. Maybe you're holding grievances against yourself, and you also need to let that go. So what we focus on grows.
Yep.
And so, Deepak Chopra always talks about attention and intention.
Yes.
So you have to hold an intention for the day. You have to hold an intention for your life. And you need to focus your attention on your intention. Now, one of the things that I've noticed, and it's part of the reason why we wrote the book, it's part of the reason why I started on a journey of self-development in the first place, is that if we don't know where we're going nowhere.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that. So if you imagine, now I don't know how many of your listeners watch football, right? Probably not a whole lot, but that's okay. But
football, American football or soccer?
Very good question. I live in Ireland, Dublin, Ireland, okay? Yes. And in Ireland, we have Gaelic football, so it confounds the conversation even more. Okay. Depending on what part of the world you're in, it means something different, right?
Okay.
So I say, just imagine a game of, we're going to use soccer as an example.
Yeah.
But if there were no goals at either end of the pitch, how many people would legitimately want to spend a Saturday afternoon sitting there watching a bunch of people running around in circles?
Right.
It wouldn't be very exciting, okay? And we would struggle to see what was the point of it all. So for those of us who are listening right now and are wondering, what is my purpose? Why are things not working out for me? Why does this keep happening? Is it me? Is it my fault? Could I have done things differently? And all the usual running commentary that goes on, right? Cambridge did a study a while back, okay? And they were asking people, what is your goal? Okay, so 86% of the people had no set goal. So it's no wonder that the majority of people don't know what they want and are confused and finding life a bit hard, right?
Right.
Of the 14% that were left, only 3% had it written down. So when we talk about, only a small percentage of the world being successful, that's completely within your control.
Yes.
And so it's very easy to point the finger and go, oh, but it's easy for you, which is called an excuse. Okay?
Right.
Excuses are reasons for failure. Okay?
Oh. Ooh.
Right. And now what's beautiful about that is that when you start treating failure as feedback, you start the path towards success.
Yep. I always tell my clients and people that I speak with, any situation that we find ourselves in, any circumstance that we find ourselves in, is feedback. If we're having someone in front of us and there's a disagreement or whatever going on, or even a misunderstanding on our part or whatever, it's simply just feedback for us, information for us to take in and process and come up with a different way. And I love how you spoke about earlier about our responses, and they are entirely within our control. And you've said, in our conversation previously, love how you've said there's little, in the grand scheme of life, there are a lot of things that are out of our control that we just simply don't have control over. we don't have control over the weather. We don't have control over certain economic situations, et cetera, government, et cetera. But this is something that we do have complete control over. And I love that you speak about the responsibility in our life. How have you come to this place? Were you always of that mindset?
Absolutely not. Okay. So what is very amusing, and I'm laughing for so many different reasons, but I won't get into all of them, but like, I'll give you an example. There's a book called The Celestine Prophecy.
Oh, yes.
I read it as a 15-year-old, okay, and I was blown away. I was like, there really is energy, which of course we all know now to be the reality, but at that point it was still kind of hocus pocus land, right?
Yes.
So I was, I think I don't know, I can't remember what year that was. I think it might have maybe 1996-ish when I read the book, and it blew me away. I was like, I'm in. It's heart all the way.
Yeah.
I read it again when I was 28, and I thought it was complete nonsense. Okay?
Oh.
Complete nonsense. So I was living a shadow life. So for those people who know what the shadow is, it's the other part of you. So Matthew McConaughey always talks about this, and he has a speech on YouTube where he talks about there's two wolves.
Yeah.
Yeah, the good one and the bad one. It depends who you feed as to how big they get, right? Well, I was feeding the wrong one for a while, right? So when I came back then, maybe 34 years old before I came back, and I read it again, and it blew me away again. I was like, wow. I was like, but the book is the same book.
Yeah.
But I just viewed it differently.
Yeah.
So there is a science behind that, which if you want, I can get into the science bit.
Yes,
for those of
please.
you who like science. So you got something called the reticular activating system. So you would liken that to an executive secretary. They take instruction, they're like a gatekeeper, they keep out information that maybe aren't in line with your goals and stuff, but they don't ask questions, and they just do whatever instructions they're given, they act on them, right? So this is very similar to a reticular activating system. So a reticular activating system does three things. It allows you to filter all of the auditory and visual cues that you're getting of anywhere between 15 and 30,000 just me sitting in this room, excluding the screen, right?
Right.
And this allows me to filter, and everybody else, the information so that I focus, number one, on the task at hand and exclude everything else. Men love doing this. They just go, this is my one thing, and everything else doesn't exist. So when my girlfriend speaks to me when I'm doing something, I can't even hear her.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. She says, do you hear me? I was like, well, no, because I'm doing this. And when afterwards, I'll happily talk about whatever we need to talk about. But right now, I'm 100% focused, right? The second thing is, it will allow in information that are in line with our paradigm. So for anybody who's not familiar with the word paradigm, it's something that Bob Proctor is well known for, letting the world know about. It's not a new idea. It didn't come from him originally. It's something that's been around a long time. It has a few different names depending on where in the world you are and what culture, and they have different names and stuff. But basically, it is a system of beliefs that are held in the subconscious mind. And 95% of what we do is subconscious or learned behavior. And it's running like a program in a software, which becomes hardware. And that's a different, we'll get into that in a minute. And so anything that's not in line with your worldview will be discarded, which is why logic doesn't come first. Logic matches your worldview, and you then exclude things based on that, right?
Yes.
And that's what the reticular activating system does. And the third thing is it alerts you to threats to you and loved ones when necessary, which is why a woman can be asleep during the day with a jackhammer going outside in the middle of New York City, for example, but hear her baby whimper in the corner and wake up immediately, because it's what's important, right?
Yes. So
because of those things, our reticular activating system keeps us where we are at. And in one sense, it keeps us from, the schizophrenic is the one who that doesn't work properly, or has become damaged for whatever reason, and they aren't able to continue on any given task, and things become quite difficult.
Right.
All of which is solvable, I might add, but without making any medical claims, perhaps that's not a good route to take. But certainly, there's ways to overcome anything.
Right.
Most, in fact, all problems are disguised opportunities for growth or whatever else.
Yes.
So, does that answer your question, first of all?
It does, and then some. And I love it. Absolutely every bit of it. You said that, there was something fascinating that you said when we were talking about paradigms. When we talk about that, that's the idea that if we're, I envision that meme that shows the pictures of the glasses, and one glass is saying I'm half full, the other glass says I'm half empty, the other glass says I'm
refillable.
Unrefillable, or I've seen one that says I'm full of piss. I don't know, but right, and that's the realist.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
Right. But it's the lens which we view the world with. And you're absolutely right, where there is that dynamic of we look for and hone in on those things that support where we are, what we believe, what we think, how we feel, et cetera, et cetera. And we discard all other information that confronts that or conflicts with that. And that's called cognitive dissonance, right? Where we just tune all out any other possibility of any other new information coming in to support and allow and enable us to shift a belief. So how do people then allow for that openness of shifting beliefs?
Well, okay, it comes down to decision making.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, you need to be open and receptive to change in order for change to happen. That's the first thing. You need to recognize that change is necessary in order for you to look around at things that could potentially aid in resolving whatever your issue is. But if you don't know you have an issue, it's like the addict.
Yes.
Every conversation you have with them reinforces their decision to be an addict. Right. Because they haven't decided that they're going to change, or they don't accept that they're an addict. Now, with something like drugs, it's really easy for them to see, well, if you're injecting something into your arm, for example, or you haven't slept in 60 days or something like that, then it's pretty obvious. Mm-hmm. But if it's something like that's culturally acceptable,
right,
like I deserve a glass of wine.
Right.
Right, and particularly this whole marketing and this deserving element, even though it's a poison, is directed towards women primarily.
Right.
Because there's that whole interplay of I'm not enough and that whole side of things. And so they recognize that and they market directly to that need, right?
Right.
And so when you try and have a conversation, well, you potentially do deserve a glass of wine. But when it becomes 2 or 3 bottles per day and you start at 11 in the morning, maybe your family is going to have to bear the brunt of your decision that it's worth it, that you deserve it, right?
Right.
You know what I mean?
I love that.
So, so it's an interesting one. But when it comes down to decisions, you can either make conditional decisions or unconditional decisions.
So how did you personally get to that point? Or was it a series of events? Was it one pivotal moment that it clicked for you? And
yes, coming back to that point.
All right.
You don't need to bring me back from time to time.
No.
Go off on it. Okay,
I'm hanging with you.
So I was at an event in Dublin for one of Bob Proctor's top consultants in the world, who conveniently happened to be in Dublin. And if you guys are interested in this particular course that Bob Proctor and the Proctor Gallagher Institute run, it's called Thinking into Results. And the lady who was my coach and the coach of the other lady who wrote the book with me, Jackie Carroll, just dropped me a message and I will connect you with her personally. a very, very talented lady. And we can go about that. But I sat in the audience and I looked up and I said, there's a 12-step program, right? So 12 steps is quite an intro. I don't know what it is about 12, actually.
Right.
There's probably some deeper significance that's beyond me, but
right.
They use it in addiction, the 12-step program.
Yeah.
Also, the Proctor Gallagher Institute has chosen to bring it into 12 modules.
Mm-hmm.
Russell Brand, you probably see if you find me on Facebook and you'll see the link, you'll see me standing with Russell Brand with my book.
Yeah.
Which, ironically enough, I have my hands over my own name, which is hilarious because I didn't prep the photograph, and so it looks like it's his book, not my book. It's kind of funny. Yeah. Everyone goes, "Oh, is that his book?"
Right. I'd love to know the story behind that picture too.
Yeah, well, that may be on another day.
Okay.
We'll get into all that because there's lots of stories in the how to and all that. But he also has a book based on the 12 steps.
Mm-hmm.
So 12 is an interesting number. So as a slight aside, but I was sitting there and I said, look, if this isn't complete BS, this is perfect for me. This woman is very, very direct, and I need accountability. Right? And so this woman will give me a kick up the backside, which is what I needed. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I recognize that when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yes.
Right. And I just said, you know what? It was the 6th of June, 2015. And I said, that's it. I said, I don't know how I'm going to afford this because it's not cheap. But then again, every investment requires, if you don't pay attention. Right?
Yes. Yes.
So it requires you to invest in your number one asset, which is yourself.
Yep.
So I made a decision to stop drinking alcohol for a year, because at the time I was spending about this is in the book, by the way, about €800 a month on entertainment and the like.
Yeah.
And so just having the crack, as we say in Ireland, which is not to be confused with crack cocaine, to be clear, but crack is a Gaelic word meaning fun, excitement, or ambience.
Right.
Okay. So when we say in Ireland we're having the crack, it means we're having fun.
Okay.
And we're quite a boisterous group of Celtic people on a little island here, so we like to have fun and stuff. So I looked at it. At the time, the pricing structure meant that I could, just by not drinking alcohol and the things associated like taxis and all sort of stuff, I would be able to pay for that course and be able to save money at the same time.
Wow.
Hey, all I need to do is make a decision.
Yeah.
This is great. And suddenly the money's there. Right, so what most people think is, oh, where am I going to get the money from? Maybe I need to find the money before I make the decision. That's not how the universe works.
Right.
The universe, you make the decision and the money will turn up.
Yep.
Now that sounds ridiculous for anybody thinking linearly, but that's not how the universe works. So when you make the decision, you got a choice. So a conditional decision is, I will go on a diet unless somebody offers me a cupcake. I will go for a run unless it's slightly cold or raining outside.
Right.
I will do this if whatever, right? Unconditional decision is different. It's regardless of circumstances, regardless of whether it puts me out or I feel like doing it at the time when I have to do it. I'm doing it, and I'm not going to stop doing it until the pre-agreed time when I've said I'm going to stop doing it.
Love it.
I said 1 year. 1 year elapsed. I then didn't drink for another 3 or 4 months after that. Now I have a Guinness from time to time.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the goal wasn't to never drink alcohol again, because I wasn't like some raving lunatic or anything. But at the same time, I recognized that the money had to come from somewhere. And at that time, I thought it had to come from somewhere where I knew where it was coming from.
Right.
Rather than outside.
Right.
So based on doing that program, I did it once. Then I said, I probably could have given it a bit more. So I did it again.
Wow.
In the course of the second time, the lady Jackie Carroll who did this, who we produced this book together, she also did it the second time. She had her big breakthrough in her idea, which is how the book came about, in the second time of doing this. So had we only both decided to do it just the one time, I wouldn't be here talking to you,
right,
and she wouldn't be doing what she's doing.
Wow. Can you show us the book? I have your book, but it's on my Kindle, and so I think a hard copy, if you have it available, would be great. There it is, folks. I'm fascinated. Share with us a little bit maybe about what led you and Jackie to come together and to write this book, and what did you put into it? What was the intentional attention that you put into that?
Well, okay. So when you hold something in your mind with belief over an extended period of time, it will clothe itself in the most convenient manner possible. In other words, if you hold it in your head, you will hold it in your hand as a physical thing, right? It's a transmutation of energy. So you have spirit and you have matter. There are no difference between the two. They just, some of them have a few more electrons. That's about it. I mean, obviously it's slightly more complicated than that, but but I mean, that's the basics of it. So any thought that you hold, so if you look around, and I want everybody to do the same thing, look around the room that you're in. Nothing in the room existed first as an object rather than as an idea before somebody went and made it. So like, you don't have builders don't just go, I've got a few bricks and I've got a bit of cement, so we'll see what happens. Of course not. You have an architect that starts months beforehand. They plan out every single detail. They like drainage, like all of this planning that goes in before they ever give it over to anybody to start any building. And yet we think that, these things are just here. They're not here. For those reasons. They're here because somebody had an idea and they held it long enough for it to become real, for them to find ways to make it happen. So in our situation, Jackie came up with an idea while she was watching a documentary about Oculus being bought by Facebook. Back in 2014. If I'm not mistaken, and she was watching it in 2016 or 17, give or take, 2016, I think. And she said, well, she struggled, as do most people, myself included at one point, to visualize. You close your eyes, you try and picture something, and it keeps changing. Or you close your eyes, and there's no pictures. And you're like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I see pictures? So first of all, 8% of the people in the world can't see in pictures. So if you close your eyes for a moment and try and think of a banana, most people watching this can see a banana. Now, they're seeing the one from the book and the TV and the ones you now see in supermarkets. They're not seeing the way bananas actually look organically, but that's another conversation. And then if you close your eyes and you think of your front door, you can tell if it opens left to right or right to left, and if it's a double doors or whatever. Everybody can see it. You know what color your fridge is. Everybody knows those things. But when they start to visualize, everything just mishmash, like when you're in a dream. And you can't hold anything. So she said, well, what if you could just visualize with your eyes wide open in virtual reality? Which is a pretty big idea. Considering she didn't know anything about gaming, didn't know anything about design, didn't know anything about coding, knew nothing about that whole process. Nothing to do with computing, technology, nothing. Right? But she had an idea. And when you have an idea and you hold it in your mind, you'll find the people to make it happen because you're holding the idea. And what happens is we all have ideas and we just let them go. Oh, I could never have that. I'm not good enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not that enough.
Yes.
Nonsense. The amount of ideas that have passed through everybody's mind, that had they taken hold of them and been nurtured them, could be living any type of life they wanted right now.
Absolutely.
But they didn't do that.
Absolutely.
And they say with an idea that in the beginning, it needs to be the flames need to be fanned. You need to be shielded from the wind of change and people's opinions and stuff. Right. But eventually it takes on an idea of a power of its own, and nothing can put it out.
Right.
So we take the example of a limited liability company. Okay. So we create things that aren't real all the time. Like money, for example. Okay. Because it's useful. It's a tool. Okay, so the limited liability company, for example, we agree that there's this entity called X company, right? And that it can borrow money. And the person who owns the company is not liable for that money because it's a limited company, right? To limit the liability, right?
Right.
And then the person who started the company can be dead 200 years and the company's still there. So what have we done? We've created agreed imagined reality. And we do it all the time. So we do it with money. Some people would argue we do it with things that are more significant, but we won't get into that today. But so when it comes to the book, Jackie decided that this needed to happen. This idea needed to become real. So she went to the Matrix, which is a big event which costs $20,000 to go. She paid the first 1,000 on her credit card with no idea where the rest of the money was coming from. Like none, no plan, no nothing. Like
wow.
And she never actually told me where it came from either, but she told me it just derived, right? And she went and ended up going to the event. And so while she was there, it turns out, unbeknownst to her at the time when she made the decision, which of course came first, that Bob Proctor and Sandy Gallagher had invested in a company that did virtual reality only a few months beforehand. And so when people at the Matrix, it's a kind of like a mastermind environment where you exchange, you talk about your idea for 60 seconds or something along those lines, and then people tell you who they can connect you with, who will be useful to make that reality.
Oh, okay.
And so you're essentially paying for a mastermind environment with connections you'll keep for life because of the nature of your shared experience and so on, right?
Yeah.
And the vibrational energy with which you leave with. Okay? So you need to ride that wave, of course, and use your idea as a surfboard or whatever, right?
Right.
And so she was talking to Sandy, and Bob was coming blindside to her and asking people to move out of the way, and he put his hand on her shoulder, and she was like, "Oh my God, it's Bob Proctor," right?
Right.
So, put his hand on her shoulder and said, "This is the next Facebook. If anybody in the room has any money to invest, have a chat with this lady."
Wow.
Right? Now, at the time, I'm in Santiago, Chile. I got headhunted for a job running a high potential startup in the market research industry in Santiago. So I'm hearing about this like on the grapevine, you know. I'm watching it on Facebook and everything.
Wow.
And blown away. So that's how she ended up. By about 4 hours later, she had 12 people interested and picked 4 investors, limited company in Nevada, and Bob Proctor on board, you know, with his personal attorney was now her attorney.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's all in the book, right? But you need to read it to get the rest of the story. I don't want to give away anymore.
Okay.
But so I left South America to come back, and she said to me, "Lloyd, the lady that was writing the book with me has fallen through. Will you write it with me?"
Wow.
And I was like, because I'd forgotten this, but she did say to me before I left, if you help me get this out here, I'll offer you 10% of the company, which I have no recollection of. She told me about it. I was like, that really happened? because I was obviously focused
Right.
my reticular activating system on something else, right?
Yes.
So, and then also I had a video production company, and we made the ad that she used to go forward in a one of the Voom awards to get in front of Richard Branson. And we did it in a week, and she didn't obviously get to the thing because other people had votes for 11 months already.
Right.
But I made that video with her.
Wow.
And so I was the most logical person to speak to, you know.
Yeah.
And I love writing. All I've done for my entire life consistently, apart from enjoying myself, is read and write. I to do it all day long, every day. And I write with an ease that upsets people. How easy it is for me, because that's all I know in that sense, right?
Right.
Now I've learned some other skills, obviously. That was always my primary interest, was poetry and that type of stuff. So that's how the book happened.
Wow. What a great story.
Pretty exciting. And it only really gets into the very, very, very tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. Well, what I appreciate too is the power of, like you said, walking through the process of holding an idea in your mind and then not letting go of that idea, not allowing that idea to just kind of sail away and fade into the background, but hanging on to it and knowing that there's something there, and then making it happen, vibrationally bringing it into existence. There was a chart that you were sharing with me when we were connecting that is fascinating to me, and I think that would really explain with our viewers. Yes, energetic self-perception. Can you go through this with us?
Sure. So all of us have an understanding of ourselves, whether it be all-encompassing or quite limited. And we go through different levels, and we may not necessarily always live on the same level because there are triggers. Which is family. It's a very popular one.
Huge.
You know, old relationships, sibling rivalry, and that, and also work environments are generally the main triggers. But what happens is that when we are in a core emotion of apathy, meaning where there's no action, we just say, sure, whatever. Like, so I lived in this world of apathy for a long time. And so I was a victim of myself. There was nobody victimizing me. There was no real reason for me to feel victimized in any way, shape, or form, but I victimized myself. So what's interesting is that you are both the judge and the victim.
Yes. And
you're on trial.
Right.
In your own mind.
Yep.
All day, every day. So if anybody's ever been in a courtroom, it's pretty stressful. Well, no matter what end of it you're on. And so imagine that goes on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yep.
For most of your life. And it's like right at the most pivotal moment of that court case, and you're on stand.
Yeah.
And you feel like your innocence is being questioned, and your loyalty is being, your honesty, everything is, and your whole rug's about to be pulled from under you, and everything's going to get sucked away into an oblivion. Some people, that's how they're living right now.
All day, every day, and some people don't wake up from it, right?
Right. And a lot of people don't actually know that there's an alternative.
Right. It's very sad.
Because they're trapped in that cycle. Right. So victimhood is not good. And you allow responsibility is very important. So when we take, I didn't like the word responsibility, upset me for a long time. I was like, I have not taken responsibility for any of this stuff.
Right.
Because I was a bit of a rebel in that sense. So, but when I started to take personal responsibility for not just me, but also the things extending from me, right? I was completely free. I was like, wow, all I had to do all these years ago was just take responsibility, and bad stuff would stop happening.
Right.
Incredible.
Well, how
And
do you explain the responsibility piece, like you said, to people who are stuck in, yes, but look at all of this stuff that has happened to me. And I lived in that world too. I bathed in it for years and years and years, and I did not get it until I did. And then
right, okay.
I
Well, you
feel like
can use a variety of different things, like when is now a good time,
right.
and what is
Yeah.
another one that I like to use. I mean, the reality is that our temptation is to be very timid when people are in pain, which is fair enough.
Right.
Um, but that isn't necessarily what people need in all
Right.
circumstances.
Right.
I mean, I'm all for listening to people with intention and with my attention.
Mm-hmm.
But if people are running a narrative that's destructive to
Yeah.
themselves, I'm not going to allow that to continue without letting them know there's an alternative. Now, whether or not
Amen.
they choose to take it or not is a different story.
Right.
But I'm not going to stand there and go, oh, terrible. Yeah. It's spreading emotional poison.
Amen.
And I'm allowing them to spread emotional poison, and I'm partaking in it and allowing my vibration to be taken down. And that's no way to live.
We
So
are, our journaling group is reading Radical Forgiveness, and in there, Colin Tipping talks about the Native American ritual of allowing someone within the tribe to come before the council 3 times and speak about an upset. And that's it. And they would listen to it. And they would offer, their advice or whatever, but they would give their attention to it, like you said. But after the 3rd time, if they wanted to step into the council, they were told, absolutely not. You go away and you let it go, deal with the problem. You're done. We're over it, basically.
wow,
I
like
love that. Yes.
I
Yeah.
really like that. Yeah. I've been listening a bit to a guy called Russell Means,
Mm.
who's an advocate for Native American culture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he gets a little bit political, so I'm not going to go into any detail right
Sure.
now.
Yeah.
But very interesting, guys. You guys should definitely look up Russell Means.
Yeah.
It turns out that the Constitution of America is based on the Iroquois Confederation in the north, which is a Native American treaty. So,
Mm-hmm.
like treaties, I should say, which is what the basis of that document is about, which is interesting. So I was quite fascinated by that recently.
Yeah.
But just coming back to this point
Yes.
here as well, when we leave apathy,
Mm-hmm.
we lack a connection to self, which is why we're apathetic and why we're feeling like a victim, because we believe the external appearance of things rather than the internal objective reality and the truth. So the truth doesn't change. Our objective view on it, or subjective view, I should say, changes all the time, depending on how we feel, what's going on, who said what and how, and all this stuff. So when you're angry, your action is one of defiance. And therefore you create conflict. And you see everything as conflict. And so this is where competition comes in. So I personally think, now I want to just make this very, very clear from the outset, because people get very emotive about this topic. We have, for the last 300 years, followed the theory of evolution. Now, I know these days it's called evolution, and that's fine. But it was originally called the theory of evolution. Why? Because it was a theory. And it was now adopted and made real, and whatever that means. And so everybody doesn't question anymore. But at one point, there were lots of different worldviews, of which that was the one that was chosen for whatever reason. The problem with it is, whether you agree with it or not, is that it's based on a model of conflict and competition. If you look at ants and then big game animals, then it's easy, who are all carnivores, of course. It's really easy to see that there's conflict and that, there's competition between groups and all that sort of stuff. And survival of the strongest, which they rewrote to mean survival of the fittest about 100 years afterwards. So things change, right?
Right.
So But if you look at the way mushrooms behave, they have roots that grow under the ground, okay, called mycelium, that connects all of the trees together.
Mm-hmm.
And through that system, all minerals, all vitamins, and all the wealth and abundance of the soil gets transferred from one tree to another. And when one tree is suffering, the other trees give it what it needs to thrive.
Yeah.
When locusts come into the side of a forest, messages are sent to the other trees to close their petals. And it's all based on a model of mutual aid and cooperation.
Mm-hmm.
Now the question is, what would the last 300 years have looked like had we chosen the other model?
Right.
So I can't answer that question. And
Right.
let's not make this a discourse about whether or not you agree or disagree with the concept of evolution. That's not really the point. But we have been taught to compete.
Yes.
And I don't think it's necessary.
And we're seeing the effects of the lack of connection and the lack of community too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yes. 100%.
And so what I think is that the reason why we compete is because we're living in economic slavery.
Ah.
So this is now I was going to
into the heavy stuff
because this is part of what I'm really excited about at the moment, and what my goal is to set 1 million people free.
Yes.
And freedom doesn't just mean inside your own mind; it means to have the freedom of choice. So we spoke about this the other day. I'll give you an example. Let's imagine you want to put up a beautiful picture like the one behind Raelin here.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got some nails, you've got a beautiful picture, and you've got your hand. Now, I don't know how effective, depending on what your hand's like, obviously, but there are some limitations, certainly.
Right.
How you're going to be able to hammer in a nail with your hand, with your bare hand. You're going to struggle.
Right.
So you need a tool. And let's suggest that maybe a hammer is a good tool for that. So you hammer in the nail, put up the picture, feng shui, the clean lines, good energy, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And aesthetically, it's pleasing. Reticular activating system's all very happy. So now you know that you don't love the hammer. It's just useful in a scenario when you are putting up something like a picture. Yeah. And it's something that's beautifying the world and making it better. However, you take away the picture, you take away the nails, and you have a hammer and you have a weapon in your hand.
Yeah.
So when we talk about money, which for a lot of people is a very emotive concept, we need to understand money as a tool. Mm-hmm. And there are those people who are educated about money and those people who are uneducated about money. And that's not by mistake.
Right.
So the people who have lots of wealth have accumulated wealth over time by applying some certain principles. Those who don't have not accumulated anything because they're using the wrong principles.
Right.
Or tactics or whatever. So there are 3 ways of wealth creation. Some are more effective than others. Okay, but so they called, and Bob Proctor talks about this a lot. It's called M1, M2, and M3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so M1 being selling your time in exchange for money.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is where most everyone lives.
Right. And it's also 96%, it depends who you ask, but quite a lot, let's say, right, are using this strategy. Mm-hmm. So if I sell my time, I don't get it back, so the time's gone.
Right.
Then I spend the money, and then the money's gone.
Right.
What have I got left?
Right.
So that's a strategy that the vast majority of the planet are employing, and it clearly doesn't create wealth. It creates suffering for the most part.
Right.
And a lack of attention on things that are actually important.
Well, and just an overall sense of lack, wouldn't you say?
Well, yeah, but also I've only so many hours in the day, I've no time.
Right.
Life's so hard, and I lost my job. And you go, of course you did. The economy will change and it'll adapt. But if you're not participating in the economy,
Right.
you're only a consumer within the society, then, you know, it's like if you look at the taxation system, they take money from employed people because they know they're going to spend it immediately. So they
Yeah.
take it before they give it to you because they don't
Right.
trust you to not spend it on random things.
Right.
Right. So with self-employed people, they allow you to give it to them once you've taken care of things. Because in theory, their mindset is that you're more responsible
Right.
because you know you have to go and like generate it
Mm-hmm.
through moving pieces, you know,
Mm-hmm.
moving parts of a plan. So anyway, the M2 strategy is you invest money in order to make more money, which is great. There are some limitations or restrictions, barriers to entry, you might say. You
Mm-hmm.
need to be able to have the money in order to invest the money,
Right.
to make money, right? So there's one restriction. The other one is you need to know what you are doing. Therefore, you need the knowledge.
Right.
And if you haven't been investing time to learn a skill, then you're not going to know that knowledge, and you got to trust in somebody else.
Right.
And trust is sometimes unforgiving. And then the other thing is you have to be able to, or willing to, have a high aversion for risk. So if you lose it all, you have to be okay with that, knowing you can generate it again through
Right.
sound principles. So if you
Right.
don't know what those principles are, you may struggle. So what happens is people do M1, they get a nest egg together, and then they get that money and keep it in the bank, which is hilarious because the first thing the bank do is they invest it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're taught to save it, right? Which is kind of
Mm-hmm.
funny. But anyway, so then we go and try and trade that on the stock market or whatever. 401ks were very popular, but we're all seeing the fallacy of that whole scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see plenty more of that in the coming years, I might add. And then there's a third option. And that third option is called multiple streams of income.
Right.
Now, not to be confused with just any stream of income that happens to be more than one. So, like if you look at someone like Richard Branson, he's worth famously, is it 400 billion or something? No, he's got 400 companies, excuse me, and he's worth a lot of money, right? Now, he doesn't have 400 jobs. He gets checks delivered into his account from 400 companies. There's a big difference.
Right.
So he has the same amount of time as the rest of us.
Right.
I think it's 86,600 seconds or something like that. That's, I'm sure you've probably seen that meme, right?
Yeah, I actually wrote a blog on it. It's 86,400 seconds. Mm-hmm.
There you go. See, thank you for
Yep.
correcting me.
Yep. And that was the title of my blog.
Oh, wow, cool.
One, too.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
And so he has the same amount of time, right? But what do you do for an MSI to be an MSI? For that strategy to work, that M3 strategy, you must invest time. So in the first one, you sell your time for money. The second one, you invest the money to make money. And the third one, you invest time to develop a skill.
Now, in this chart, then, the energetic self-perception,
Mm-hmm.
how do we move up along these lines of thinking and these core emotions, right, to get us to those places then?
Well, this is what I was leading into.
Okay.
So this third piece is we invest our time, we create we learn a skill. What most people do is they go back to M1 with that and go, I've got a skill, I'm going to sell my time with that skill for more money. Totally missing the point of how freedom is created, right? Internally and externally, right? So instead, you invest your time to learn a skill, then you leverage the skill and more time in order to create an asset. Then you leverage the asset. So I'll give you an example. Myself and Jackie wrote this book. It took us approximately 3.5 months. And it costs maybe $3,000 or $4,000, give or take. And every time the book sells, money from our investment comes back.
Right.
But we can sell it forever. And it's, you know, I get very good feedback from the book, which is good news. So at least we know that we created something of value, but also it will continue year after year to sell, and they will continue to create a residual passive income.
Right.
So
an evergreen opportunity, correct?
Right, but not everybody wants or needs to write a book.
Right.
That's not the point. The point is that when you can get people to collaboratively work together, you access more energy than you could possibly hope to accumulate on your own. You access what Napoleon Hill talked about in Think and Grow Rich, which is the power of the mastermind. And so I run a large organization within a mastermind community on a platform where I got this particular graphic from, ironically, where those coming into the platform are starting on level 3 core feeling and emotion. So those people who are on level 1 and level 2 are not going to want to work collaboratively with other people. They haven't seen the value in that yet.
Right.
And they're living in a conflict, competitive environment, and are living in defiance or lethargy and victim or conflict.
Right.
And so, while my heart goes out to those people, and there might be one of you guys who's watching this, it's necessary to have self-care, but also to take some responsibility and start to surround yourself with people who are ahead of you, let's say, in that journey. So when you start to take responsibility, you start to understand the value of cooperation as you learn compassion for yourself. Before you can't pour from an empty cup. You'll start to see that, you know, your concern for how things are being done and the systems that are in place currently are not serving people, they're not serving you. And so you go into a service mentality, which is exactly what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
You're serving your wonderful listeners, who no doubt I will converse with at some point in the future.
Yes.
And really bringing value to them and respecting them and recognizing, you know, that spirit of coherence in them, you know.
Right.
And so then really the goal with any mastermind that is based on universal principles, okay, is to bring us all to joy and absolute passion. It's completely non-judgmental, and we are in the act of creation, and we are sharing wisdom straight from the heart.
Right.
We're in the being, not just the doing. But you can't get to the being without the doing. So
right. But it's primary. I mean, we're called human beings, not human doers.
Exactly.
Exactly. Remember, people, or remind people of that all the time, is that you are a human being. You're in this life about being. I love this.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting about the whole thing is we have to be very, very, very careful not to believe and buy into our own hype.
Yeah.
If we are leading from the ego, regardless of how successful we may be materialistically, if we lead from the ego, we are not found, we are lost. And so our interactions with other people will be about, oh, what can I get from you? Why should I interact with you? That's not the way to do things. So the law of giving and receiving is quite important. Some of us have an issue with receiving. Others have an issue with giving. So I was one of those people who had an issue with giving. I had no problem receiving. Okay? Whereas you were you said you were the opposite. So you were wondering, well, am I qualified to receive, or should I feel? How should I feel emotionally about receiving, and what does that mean about me? And I know that whole thing. So what happens is, as more and more successful we become, the temptation, if we live in an economy which is based on conflict and competition, is for us to be ego driven. And so I'm the successful one, so I'm going to drive this car, and you're going to move, and do all this sort of stuff.
Yes, entitled. Yes, yes.
Right, right. But we have to
Yes.
move away from that, because your future self will
Yeah.
not reward this sort of ego-driven behavior, and
Right.
your children, grandchildren, descendants. We're supposed to be the elders of the tribe,
Yeah.
or
Well.
aiming to move in that direction. Okay, we're
Mhm.
not elders quite yet, obviously.
Mhm.
But what I mean is our aim
Mhm.
should be the ones to pass down wisdom,
Yes.
not to be, the peacock,
Right.
right?
And perpetuating that cycle. And I think that right now we're seeing a lot of that energy um, in our world going on today, particularly here in the US. But it is my belief that we're watching it in the death throes, not in the perpetuation of it. I believe that it's coming forward and it's eking out its last gasps, and it's, raging against it because it knows that it's dying and it needs to shift. And, part of the intention of this program, Raise Your Vibration, is to raise our vibration, elevate all of us collectively out of those core beliefs of anger and jealousy and fear and rage and competition, like you said, and me, and there's not enough for anyone else, etc. Because our universe is all energy, and abundance is the vibration, right, that the universe lives off of.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could share a few more minutes with us about that, about your thoughts on that and what you've come to understand.
Well, yeah, I mean, you must willingly give to graciously receive.
Love that.
So we don't give to receive, but by giving first, we open ourselves up to receiving.
Right.
So, you know, are
How
you
did
going to make?
you come to? Go
You
ahead.
go ahead.
How did you then? I know, because we really are the opposite ends. You represent more of you didn't have a problem receiving. I represent I had to really work hard at receiving. Giving was natural to me. How did you come to then that it's opposite for you in your life and exemplifying that?
Right. So I haven't necessarily come to the opposite. I've come to balance, as have you, on the same spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
the pendulum flows back and forth between positive and
Right.
negative and all that. So, we can look at it and think that they're opposites. They're not.
Right.
They're
Right.
extremes of the same thing.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
You
You're
know?
right. Yeah.
I mean, I suppose you could bring it back to anything, really. I mean, love and hate
Mm.
can flip on a dime.
Mm-hmm. It can, and
Especially
those
because
are
you're so emotive
yeah.
about
Yes.
love, and you're so emotive about hate, that if they crisscross, my God, there may
Right.
be trouble ahead, like that song goes.
Right.
But at the same time, by holding on to hatred, we create more of it. By holding on to
Yes.
love, we create more of that. And when
Yes.
we live in a society based on fear,
Mm-hmm.
but we desire to create an experience based on love.
Mm-hmm.
And they are at the very base, our intentions can either be placed under fear
Right.
or love. And
Right.
so, where are you coming from? At the very, very, very base of every intention, there are only two things.
Right.
And it's not love and hate, it's love and fear.
Right.
Right? So, I came to that realization over a period of time. I don't know if there was anything in specific that I can think of, or I could tell you hundreds of them. So,
right.
obviously, we've got to live in a bit of time. So,
Right.
I think that everybody inherently knows the answers to every single question you're ever going to ask. And the reason being, if you know the question, you already know the answer. You would never have found the right question.
Oh,
So
thank
they
you.
say, oh, well, what's the answer to this? And you're like, well, you're better off starting with the question.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
and I think it's it's the searching for, I don't want what the answer is. I just want to dance around it, or I want a magic something, to just take
Right.
care of it
Because,
for me.
yeah, I mean, the whole concept of the law of attraction, as illustrated by The Secret, kind of
Right.
left out some key components, in
Mm-hmm.
my opinion. Is that
Mm-hmm.
you don't get what you think about, you get what you picture and
Amen.
believe to be true.
Yep. You get what you are, right?
So you have to, we talk about it in the book about using future gratitude.
Mm.
And so I like to use I remember when.
Mm.
So if you think about a point, and maybe actually, why we can all close our eyes again, just for why not?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Everybody close your eyes. And I want you to think back to a time in your life when you were doing really well.
Mm.
Things were going really well in your life. You had a good relationship, maybe, or you just got promoted. Everything's going incredibly well. You just got that promotion, um, or you just maybe won an award or in a sport or anything like that. It could be something quite small from your childhood, just something that you can hold on to and go, wow, I could just really embrace that feeling. Imagine it's the day after.
Mm.
How did you feel? So likely you were elated. You jumped out of bed in the morning. You were running around the place like a lunatic. You were smiling ear to ear. You were like energy bursting out of your body.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that happened in the past. Okay. That may not be the case and the truth for you right now in your life. You may not be at that point in your life at this exact moment. Maybe you had past experiences of success. You're not experiencing them right now. So you're remembering success, but you don't have it right now.
Mm.
So what is the difference between that and remembering success in the future that you also don't have right now? There's no difference.
Right.
So if you just imagine it's the day after the day of your success, and you're feeling all of those same experiences and those same feelings and the same elation and energized and all that stuff, and you feel what that feels like, and you plot a route backwards
Mm.
to where you are currently, not in linear time,
Mm-hmm.
but in the way that the universe functions, which is there is no time, there is no space.
Right.
No, there are multiple dimensions all happening concurrently.
Mm-hmm.
So that relationship is fed through gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we are grateful for the things that we can I remember when I crossed the stage to get that award. I remember when I met the most incredible person in the world and we walked together on the beach. I could see the sunlight hit their eyes as their hair crosses their face and all this sort of stuff. So they're very real.
Mm-hmm.
So currently, which is an incredibly amusing story, I became a father 5.5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And when I first met my girlfriend, I had this self-image statement up on the wall. Right? And part of it said, I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm with my life partner and we have a child on the way.
Oh,
And I didn't know,
wow.
I forgot it was there. And she's like, so she didn't say anything. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And um, she found out she was pregnant not a particularly long time after reading that.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was interesting is that because at the time when I wrote it, I didn't have a girlfriend at all. So
Yeah.
I literally, and she's exactly the same as what I wrote,
Wow.
like exactly the same. In
Yeah.
fact, possibly even better,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm watching her unfold as a human
Mm-hmm.
through me channeling information and
Mm-hmm.
knowledge and experience and energy in her direction, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so I'm very grateful to see that unfolding because
Yeah.
it's a process that takes time.
Yep.
And the student must be ready.
Yes.
And in relationships, you don't want to turn one or other into a student. But if you are both the student
Right.
of an experience that allows you to grow together,
Mm-hmm.
that's a different story.
It's
So,
incredible. Thank you so much for your time. I want to thank you for everything. You've shared so much amazing stuff with us. Also, how do people connect with you before we go?
all right. So if you want to look for me on Facebook, it's facebook.com/Mr. Lloyd Chambers. Okay.
Yes.
And there's a picture of me and Russell Brand, so it's a bit hard to miss. And
Yes.
if you remember what this picture looks like, you'll see.
Yes.
And actually, funny enough, I'm the only Lloyd Chambers who's white on Facebook, which is interesting.
Oh, that is
which
interesting.
is really funny, yeah, because I've been in America and I've been like, hey,
Yeah.
hold on, that's not me, oh, there I am. Yeah, it's very funny.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but hey, it's in what's in the name. So then on Instagram, you can find me under You Change the Lens, which is ironic considering what you were talking about. You as in you, the letter U, and then change the lens.
Okay.
And then I also have a page on Facebook called Change the Lens You Look Through.
Love it. Yep.
And yeah, just Facebook is my preferred method of operation. That's where I am most of the time. I don't post pictures of cats playing the piano, although they are amusing.
Oh, they are.
They are. But so that's not the type of content you can expect to be bombarded with. But yeah, no, like I welcome conversations with like-minded individuals who are interested and committed to becoming the best version of themselves.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean by talking to me that you require some sort of software upgrade or that there's anything wrong with you or that you need some guidance or whatever. Right. Literally, I love connecting with people just simply because we all have so much to offer one another. Not just like a value exchange, which is what we're accustomed to, but because we're better in collaboration.
Yes, we are. And I have to tell you that word collaboration, and I think I told you this before, has come up a lot for me this year and going forward. And it's been incredible, just even the power and the energy of that word alone, the connections and the friendships, and my world has just grown and grown and grown so amazingly. And now you talked earlier about, you elevate yourself and you elevate your energy and all of that in your vibration when you're around people that are doing those things that you see or aspire to do yourself. And, we all have mentors and coaches in life, right? And, Bob Proctor is a huge one for you and others, Mark Santos as well, and many others. And you now are holding court in that same space. And so for me, I want to say humbly, you are in that space with me, collaborating with me to elevate as well. And I really appreciate it.
Well, you get what you are.
Yes, so, that's true, right?
Like attracts like, which I think is great. And I think good people attract good people, which is why I like talking to good people.
Yes.
And then also one thing that kind of blew me away when I heard it the first time, it sounds slightly cliche, but when you actually think about it and sit in it, it's a different story. What you want wants you.
Oh. Wow.
So,
wow.
Depending on how metaphysical you choose to take that, if you think about the fact that we are the universe experiencing itself or allowing experience to happen in a more cosmic way, then those experiences will never happen because we're also individual and we are incredibly, none of us have the same, even though every one of your fingers has a different fingerprint.
Yeah.
It's like crazy. Like,
right.
I was looking at the two of them recently going, wow, they're like so different. Now this is wild.
Yeah.
So everything coded into the universe is individual. And so the potential possibilities for opportunities and for individual experiences are just, you couldn't calculate it. you know.
No, and we really can create the life that we aspire to and that we
Right,
envision.
right.
Absolutely.
And what I have chosen as my vehicle
Mm-hmm.
is this mastermind community.
Yeah.
And so obviously we've had a conversation about this, and I
Yes.
think that anybody who is watching this video, particularly those who are live, I
Mm-hmm.
would suggest that you say, type in the message bar in the comments, yes, please. Okay, if you would
Awesome.
like to come and join us in this mastermind.
Awesome.
The understanding is that the mastermind is intentionally free. Okay, it's not free so you can just come in and go, oh, this is interesting, and then leave. That's not why it's free. It's free because we want to help people gain an understanding of why it is important to collaboratively work together if you want to become free financially, personally, spiritually,
Mm-hmm.
because it's necessary to work with the energy of other people in order to achieve that. And it's important to understand your relationship to money, because likely if you don't have enough abundance around you, there's a very clear reason for that, and I'm afraid it's you.
Mm-hmm.
So we can help move towards a better understanding of that, so you can move out of that current set of circumstances.
Yeah.
And there's no requirement as such to be part of the mastermind, but you should go in with an intention.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, doesn't mean there won't be struggles or barrier barriers or any of that sort of stuff, but there should be an intention. Hey, I want to be open and receptive to new knowledge and to grow. And if that's the case, there will be a link dropped in here where you can come and join that mastermind community. For me, I chose to run a mastermind group for which I paid $200 one time. But for people to participate in a mastermind, it's free.
Awesome.
It was when we understand and become a bit clearer on the fact that, hey, you know what, I want to raise up other people.
Yes.
That's when we a small bit of skin in the game, so to speak,
Yes.
so that we can start to really generate leverage for ourselves.
Yes. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. I am so excited. I'm excited to have more conversations with you, because I know that we will. And I'm excited for the vision that I'm holding and for how that's going to unfold for me and for others as well. When we expand, right, we give other people the permission to do the same as well around us. So
absolutely. And the next time we're going to speak is on the mastermind.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much, Lloyd. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much. And we'll do this again.
No problem. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.